Having established an effective territorial search and rescue organisation, contracting states will need to be able to speedily gather information about an aircraft emergency and process it quickly to ensure that an effective and appropriate search and rescue response can be made. Effective means of transmitting information about potential aircraft incidents must exist within a country, so that rescue coordination centres, known as RCCs, can start appropriate response action as swiftly as possible. RCCs shall immediately evaluate any information they receive to determine the extent of any response. If the information is obtained from sources other than an air traffic service unit, then the RCC shall determine which emergency phase the situation corresponds to, and shall start to apply the applicable procedures. During the uncertainty phase, RCCs shall cooperate with the reporting air traffic service units and any other appropriate services and agencies, in order that incoming reports may be speedily evaluated. If the situation escalates to the alert phase, then the RCC shall immediately alert the search and rescue units and initiate the operational plans. When an aircraft is believed to be in a state of distress, the RCC, in the order given here, will initiate action by appropriate search and rescue units in accordance with the operational plans, ascertain the position of the aircraft, estimate the degree of uncertainty regarding its position, and determine the extent of the search area, notify the aircraft operator and keep him updated of developments, notify adjacent RCCs who may be able to offer assistance or are concerned with the incident, notify the air traffic service unit of the situation if the information has been received from a non-aviation source, request at an early stage vessels, coastal stations, or any other assets to maintain a listening watch for any distress transmissions from the aircraft or emergency locator beacons, and keep those services informed of the search and rescue requirements, assist the aircraft in distress as far as possible, from the available information plan the conduct of any search effort, and communicate that plan to the search and rescue units, notify the state of registry, notify the appropriate accident investigation departments. When a pilot in command intercepts a distress signal, message or transmission, he shall record the position of the craft in distress, if possible, take a bearing on the transmission, inform the relevant RCC or air traffic service unit of the distress transmission, at his discretion, whilst awaiting instructions, proceed to the position of the emergency call. When a pilot in command observes that another aircraft or surface vessel is in distress, he shall, unless he is unable, or given the circumstances it is unreasonable, unsafe, or unnecessary to do so, keep the aircraft in distress in sight until his presence is no longer needed. Take such action as is necessary to determine the position of the aircraft in distress. Report to the RCC or Air Traffic Service Unit as much of the following as he can: the type of aircraft in distress, its identification and condition, its position expressed in geographical coordinates, radio navigational fix or distance and bearing from a known landmark, the time of the observation, the number of observed survivors, the number of observed life rafts and occupants, the apparent physical condition of any survivors. Act as instructed by the RCC or Air Traffic Service Unit. If the first aircraft on the scene of an aeroplane crash is not part of the search and rescue effort, then he shall resume responsibility of on-scene commander of all subsequently arriving aircraft until a dedicated search and rescue aircraft arrives. Should he not be able to communicate with the RCC or ATSU, then he will pass over this responsibility to the first aircraft to arrive that is able to do so. It may be necessary for an on-scene commander to communicate with ground vessels and direct them to the scene of an aircraft in distress. Aircraft should do this by transmitting by any means at their disposal. Maritime frequencies can be used, but if no direct means of communications can be established, visual signals may be used. The following procedures, performed in sequence by an aircraft, mean that the aircraft wishes to direct a surface craft towards an aircraft or a surface craft in distress. Circling the surface craft at least once, then crossing the projected path of the surface craft close ahead and at low altitude, whilst rocking its wings, or opening and closing its throttles, or changing its propeller pitch. Then heading in the direction in which the surface craft is to be directed. To signal that the assistance of the surface craft is no longer required, the following procedure should be performed. Cross the wake of a vessel close astern at a low altitude, whilst rocking your wings, or opening and closing the throttles, or changing the propeller pitch. Communications with survivors on the ground is treated in the same way. The on-scene commander must try all means to achieve direct communications. But if this is impossible, then the use of ground-to-air and air-to-ground signals are employed. The internationally agreed search and rescue signals which follow are only used for the specific meanings assigned to them. The instructions they convey should be acted upon when observed. They are as follows. Firstly, ground-to-air signals from survivors to aircraft. We or I require assistance. We or I require medical assistance. No or negative. Yes or affirmative. Proceed in this direction. And ground-to-air signals from search teams to aircraft. The operation is completed. We have found all personnel. We have found only some survivors. We are not able to continue, returning to base. Have divided into 2 groups, each proceeding in the direction indicated. Information received that the aircraft is in this direction. And nothing found, will continue the search. Rocking your wings or switching on and off your landing or navigation lights indicates that ground signals have been understood. Packaged up supplies can be dropped to survivors, and the content of such packages can be conveyed by the attachment of coloured streamers. ICAO document 7333 specifies the following. Red signifies medical and first aid supplies. Blue signifies food and water. Yellow signifies blankets and protective clothing. Perhaps the most important role that a non-specialist aircraft may play in the initial stages of an unfolding search and rescue operation is that of relaying communications. Even though a non-specialist aircraft might be equipped only with a VHF radio, it can still relay messages to regional control centres and air traffic service units. The table shown here is a list of the RTF frequencies allocated to emergency and SAR communications. Dedicated SAR aircraft will carry sophisticated communication systems: VLF, MF, HF, VHF, UHF and SATCOM. However, a civil aircraft carrying perhaps HF and VHF is still a useful communications platform and can relay messages via the RCC or Air Traffic Service Unit.